express my admiration for my guest who has spent her life fighting for issues that we've been talking about all week: access to healthcare, economic security, so Americans don't have to worry about how they're going to eat, and making sure that the most at-risk populations don't get left behind. She grew up in Oklahoma and then worked as a teacher, a lawyer, and professor. After Wall Street crashed our economy in 2008, she fought to create the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to protect families across the country. She has been Massachusetts Senator since 2013 and is one of my personal heroes. So I am super honored today to welcome Senator Elizabeth Warren. I'm really excited.
Yep, got it.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here on my show today.
I'm delighted to be on your show. It's pretty fabulous.
Thank you so much. And as are you. You know, I've just been so inspired by you and all of your work and fighting for the most vulnerable populations. And that's something that's been really important for this show to highlight. You know, this is also a show that's reaching folks worldwide. So
Yep.
It's amazing to connect so many people and to go, this is what is similar in our country with our experience in COVID-19, and here's something that's really unique to our experience. And so to have you here representing the states has just been incredible. And I have only a few questions because you have a lot of work to do.
I'm just really happy to be here with you, and so happy that you reach out to so many people with this set of issues. So I'm ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you so much. You know, I know that you're fighting for Americans and you're making sure that the most vulnerable in our communities are protected, especially during times of crisis. And I saw that the latest jobless claim numbers that came out just this morning are shocking. It's 22 million Americans have filed unemployment claims in the past month. That's just the number of people who have filed. So can you tell us what you were proud of in the first relief packages, and what are important initial steps, and what are you pushing for in the next relief package that we're hearing is in the works?
Okay, great question. So let's start with the thing that's most important, and that is we've got to support making sure there's health care for everyone, and that means supporting our healthcare workers. In the first package, what we got and what we also need in the upcoming packages is making sure there's plenty of money for personal protective equipment, for the masks and the gowns, so that people can protect themselves. Making sure there's enough money in there for respirators, so people who are desperately sick can get the respirators and have a chance to survive. Making sure there's enough money for testing. Absolutely critical. We've got to be testing, not thousands more. We need tens of millions of tests, because the way testing works, you don't just want to test people who are already sick. You don't want to just test people who are clearly showing symptoms of coronavirus. You want to test people who appear to be healthy so you can see what this thing is doing in the population. And that's how you can track it and get ahead of it instead of always chasing it behind. So we had a lot of money for that in the most recent package, and we need to get more money for it in the next package. Second part is we always have to think about supporting our families, supporting people who are under a lot of stress. So in the first package, we did something really great, and that is expanded unemployment insurance. And we expanded it in both directions. So unemployment used to always be just people who have regular full-time jobs. Everybody else was cut out. And frankly, it wasn't very much money. So we did two things. We put in that people who are part-time, who are gig workers, who are self-employed, as well as people who are full-time regular employed, everybody can apply for unemployment if they're out of work. And that's going to make a big difference in the lives of a lot of people. Second thing is whatever the state is paying, the federal government's going to put $600 a week on top of that. So that's going to help a lot of people be able to pay the rent, to be able to buy groceries, to be able to take care of themselves and their families. Really, really good. As I think about the next bill, now that we've got that in on unemployment, that's for 4 months. Now, you know me. I want to see us make that permanent because these are the kinds of changes we need to be making. As I think about going forward, a piece we need to be doing to protect our families, I have a new bill out on protecting essential workers, an essential workers bill of rights, to make sure that all those folks who are delivering groceries for us, who are stocking the grocery store shelves, who are making sure the drugstore stays open, who are cleaning the buildings that are still open, that they are fully protected. And that means they get the protective gear, very much like the doctors and nurses do, and that they get paid hazardous duty pay. Come on, these are low-wage workers by and large, and giving them a boost in their wages would make it a lot easier because they're the ones who are helping make sure that our whole country can stay safe. So that's important. Another thing we did in the old package that I think is really good is that we put in money to help small businesses. So businesses that have fewer than 500 employees can get their payroll covered for a couple of months. And, you know, that's going to help a lot of our local restaurants and local coffee shops and just those small businesses that keep everything going. They're really having a tough time now. Something we got to do going forward is we've got to expand that and make sure it's there to help these businesses get open again once we're ready to open the economy. But that's how I think of it. First is our health. Second are people who are most vulnerable, people out of work, people who are still doing work on the front lines. And third is how we support our economy going forward.
What I love that you said in that also is, well, you know me, I can't stop with what I need now. It's what we need in the future.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you know, really taking this experience, because we talked on the show a lot about the pre-COVID-19 world and saying, I want to go back to last year. Well, we don't want to go back to last year.
Nope.
We never want to go back to even yesterday. We want to go to tomorrow, and we want to take this lesson, learn for what we need to have in place permanently, because that's something that when I spoke to the doctors on our medical episode, we were talking about, you know, a reserve and talking about how that's exactly what you would do for the military. So why would we not have that for health? And so we were talking about just learning this lesson and knowing what we need to do for the future. My dog is very impressed that I have this privilege with Laura on the show.
Hello. Haley's around here somewhere. He was here a minute ago. So.
I've seen your dog on Instagram. I love your dog. But we were just talking about not wanting to go to pre-COVID-19 world, a world that we've learned and that we're protecting ourselves for when this could happen again. So one of the things I wanted to, what do you want to see to keep helping Americans who are hurting financially, and how to help essential workers who are on the front lines right now? Not only what you can do, but what can the general public, how can we be of service to those who are of service to us?
That's a great question, Miley. Part of it is just to be considerate and remember those packages don't just arrive on your front doorstep all by themselves. that there are a lot of people out there doing a lot of hard work while the rest of us are sheltering at home, that they still have to show up and they are at some real risk. So everything you can do to lighten that burden for them, I think is a good one. And part of it is stand in your front window and wave and say thank you. Even if we're all social distancing right now, but be sure to thank people. And people who come and deliver food, come on. This is the time, if you can, dig deep. It's time for big tips. It's a time to say in a tangible way, I'm grateful for the effort you put in, because I think it's very, very important.
I think that's fun. And I am also, I encourage a lot of crafting on this show. So making signs from the window, being able to write, I appreciate you, leaving things like that you can be protecting their safety, since they are going to see so many people. But I've seen a lot of great posts of people leaving notes on their doors, or just, picking some flowers and just brightening up their day, because I think a lot about who's delivering our mail and who usually those are people in my life that brighten my day, and they become like friends. So it's really important to make sure the essential workers know how appreciative we are. While people want to work together right now to get something done, a lot of times it seems like the support isn't there in terms of championing policies that can really create a meaningful change for so many people. The policies that you're calling for now, how do you stay positive during a time like this when a crisis is just so large?
Yeah. Well, Miley, at a time like this, you can do one of two things. You can give up or you can fight back. And me, I'm fighting back. Because always, exactly right. Stay in the fight. Because, look, it's not only about this moment. It's that in a time of crisis, we see a lot in much sharper relief that's broken in our country. For example, you were just talking about it with the doctors, with the other healthcare professionals, that as a country, we think a lot about our defense in terms of weapons and a defense department, but we don't think about long-term consequences of health with nearly the same urgency. And yet we've seen in this pandemic how we are at risk and the rest of the world is at risk. This is a time for us to actually have that conversation about what kind of leadership we want, what kind of a country we want, where we want to focus. Same thing on climate change. On any given day, people say, oh, I'll worry about this another time. But it's something that threatens all of us. And pandemics, climate change, we're reminded that we are one world. Mm-hmm. And that there's no such thing as we'll deal with it here in America and around the rest of the world, they can deal with that problem. Nope, we're all related. Our public health, our climate issues all come together. Racial inequality. We know in this country that we have terrible healthcare disparities, that African Americans, for example, are more likely to have diabetes, more likely to have asthma, less likely to get the treatment that they need, that African American mothers die in childbirth at about 3 times the rate of white mothers. These healthcare disparities are now being magnified in this crisis, so that the early data seem to show that communities of color are hit harder, that African Americans are hit harder. This is part of the reason that Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and I have teamed up and are pushing hard to collect the data, insist that we're collecting the data across the country on not just the gender and the age of everyone who's tested, but also race and ethnicity, so we can keep track to see how our healthcare system is responding. And when we discover inequities, then we can fix them now. And there's the heart of the whole thing. You ask me, what keeps me going? It's that we have a chance to fix things. not just to talk about what's broken, but actually to fix things. We collect the data on testing, then we know where we need to go. And we know what kind of responses we need to make. This is a time that it's all been pushed to the edge. Everything we do. We're all hunkered down now, and we're going to have a lot of change as we rebuild this economy. And it's just like you said, Miley. We don't have to go back. We don't have to build the pre-corona economy. The going forward economy, that's the one where we can cancel out student loan debt. And we can say that young people are just trying to get an education. We want to support them. We want to make that happen. We can increase payments to people who are living with disabilities and give them a little better chance in this world. There are a lot of things we can change. We just have to stay engaged and in the fight, and now is the time to do it.
So my dad always gives me these words of wisdom, and I never know how wise they kind of are. And I go, oh, Dad, whatever. But you said two things that he said to me a lot. He's always told me that a problem clearly defined is half solved. So by actually understanding the problem, then we know what you're asking of us, the general public, how we can be involved in changing that. With voting and just being active in our communities and speaking up. So we have to know where the problem, how the problem is defined, so we know a better idea of a solution. And my dad's always said a trying time is no time to quit trying.
That's right.
And it's easy to stay positive when things are good, and it's more challenging when things are challenging. And so to rise to that occasion and to try harder when we are being tried harder.
I love that. That's the measure of who we are as people. And it's actually been one of the best parts in this crisis. It's just like you said, the folks who put up the signs to say thank you, I appreciate you. There's been so much of that in communities all across this country and all around the world. It really gives me hope. There are good people out there who are ready to rebuild their communities, ready to rebuild their countries, and ready to rebuild this world. We can do this.
And it gives me a lot of hope knowing that there's people like you who have dedicated their lives to fighting this injustice, standing up for the vulnerable. And I know you need to get back to that. So I just want to thank you so much for being on Bright Minded. You were just someone that I look up to, and I hope I don't just see you on like FaceTime and when we run into each other backstage at different shows. When it's all safe to do so, I just want to give you a hug and thank you so much for everything that you've done way before this pandemic and what you'll do way after it.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me say one last thing before you and I quit.
Please.
And that is, we all should have gotten a wake-up call with the election in Wisconsin last week. And so everything we want to do in part depends on our leadership. So critically important that we protect our right to vote. One of the things I'm pushing for right now is every registered voter in America should get a mail-in ballot for the upcoming election in November. They should be able to register online, and we should have expanded registration periods. If we have another wave of this pandemic, we do not want to make it so that people are having to make a choice between their health and voting. And we need to get those rules in place right now. I want to particularly emphasize that Vice President Biden, who is going to be the Democratic nominee, is strong on protecting voting. And one way to make sure we're strengthening our democracy is go to joebiden.com, pitch in $5, volunteer to do a little texting or a little phone banking. But we've got to be in this democracy. Every good thing we want to build depends on keeping our free and fair elections alive come November. And we've got to start now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Senator.
Bye-bye.
She is just the most badass woman ever. I'm just so inspired, and I'm on fire. She actually answered that question for me. We were going to talk about our plans to make elections safe, including universal vote by mail, extending voting early. So I really want to see that plan come to life. It's really important that we are led by someone with those values. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and please keep sending in your hashtag highlighting heroes. I want to highlight more of your local heroes, and I'll see you tomorrow for the very last episode of a very special week. Love you guys.